But welcome to the Medicare Cafe. You are joined always by your hosts. My name is Olivia Richardson.
And I'm Carrie Vogt.
So welcome everybody. This is actually a conversation. Carrie, thank you, has actually been picking the topics lately because I'm just like, tell me what agents need to know, because I think I know, but I would love to hear from an agent what agents need to know. And this was a conversation we came across, which is like, what do your beneficiaries actually need to know? And see. Thank you, Brian, for just the colorful commentary as always. So this conversation actually came up because a lot of agents, and I actually see this more in veteran agents. Okay. A lot of agents will come to an appointment and think that in order for them to show value, like what we were talking about on the on the pre-show, was that they think I need to show my clients how knowledgeable I am about Medicare and how like convoluted and confusing it can be. So they will do a 2-hour-long appointment, and an hour and 30 minutes of that appointment will be doing a Medicare 101.
Yeah, I have to disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think there's something about over-informing. Like you can see when somebody just like glosses over.
Yeah.
And then I think you're doing more harm than good. In my opinion.
I agree. I think a lot of agents or a lot of clients, if you hear like a let me think about it, let me sleep on it, I think a lot of that is like you've overcomplicated it. You've made the decision way more difficult than it needed to be, and you're making them like putting stress on the situation where it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Like I don't go, if I have somebody come over and like an electrician come and fix like the lights in my house, I don't want them to teach me how electricity works or teach me how wiring works.
They need to know the bare minimum to understand, and then you're there in the future for the questions that do come up.
Let me know like why I'm paying you, and then like do the job, and then like let me move on with my life.
I stick to when somebody asks me how long should I, plan for our appointment, I typically say 30 minutes to an hour, depending upon how many questions you have. I think that is plenty of time to warm up, get to know the person, build that trust. If I have had the occasional appointments go 2 hours, and that's typically if I'm in somebody's home and you've got somebody that maybe doesn't socialize very much, hasn't spoken to somebody in a long time, or wants to show you all 30 of their grandchildren. And, sometimes you just have to kind of listen to all that to not be rude. So I feel like most of the time, at least in my appointments, it's the beneficiary causing the appointment to run a little long.
Yeah. And that's what Pam says. She says 45 minutes is her default for her time frame of her appointment. And it's all about setting expectations up front.
Yeah.
Because I know like, and it's a really good point, Pam, to set those right expectations, because I know some people will be like, I expect it to be 5 minutes. So if they expect it to be 5 minutes and it's 30 minutes, 30 minutes is a relatively short appointment, but if they're expecting 5, they're pissed by the end of 30. And again, a lot of times it's oversell, over promise, under promise, over deliver. So say like it's going to be an hour and it only takes 30 minutes, and they're like, I have all this extra time in my day now, so just kind of calculating that. But and Brian says that he doesn't have the bladder control for an appointment that's over the hour. And Brian, that says a lot more about you than it does your clients. So
say that to a pregnant woman, that when I was running appointments, oh my gosh, when I was 9 months pregnant.
How do you even do that? When I was 9 months pregnant, I wasn't nice to anybody. I was like, if you're asking me a question, I need you to not, like, how dare you ask me to do my job? The nerve.
Oh, it's a great talking point. You know what?
Is it?
It's a great talking point. The warm-ups were very easy when I was pregnant. They just see my belly and be like, oh, I have 5 grandkids. Let's talk about babies. It's like, okay.
Did you have, like, how many clients try to touch your stomach?
Only a couple. Yeah, only a couple.
That's surprising. Pregnancy is not a factor in my meanness. Well, it's not now. Like, I kind of kept the meanness. So this is something, again, we wanted to talk about specifically what your clients are asking, what they want to know, and kind of like when you're doing your Medicare 101 or when you're doing the education portion of your appointment, what is it that you actually need to be educating on? So I know you brought these up. When somebody is under age 65, the top 3 things they want to know is how and when do I apply, when does my coverage start, and should I stay on my employer?
Yep. And those first 2, we talk about those when we're setting up the appointment. When I first have a phone call to set up the appointment, a lot of times I'm like, all right, when do you need your Medicare to start? Are you going to need it when you turn 65? Are you delaying it? Are you retiring? So a lot of times those first 2 questions we can answer before the even first appointment.
How many times do you get the question of like, should I stay on my employer plan? Is that something that like people, by the time they get to you, do they have their mind made up, or is that, how often do you get that question?
I get it a lot. I would say probably at least once a week. And that one, we need a little bit more information. I never can just, that's not just a straight shoot
That's
answer.
like a bring your plan to the appointment.
Yep. Bring your premium information, bring your deductibles, max out of pocket, bring the plan information of your current plan. You know, we've got to find out, is it a plan that has more than 20 people, like, or is Medicare going to be forced to be primary? So there's a lot of moving factors in that one.
Let me ask you what you do, because I don't know the answer to this. I'm putting you on the spot. When you do an appointment, I know there's kind of two ways that people like to do appointments. I have my favorite, but I'd like to hear from you. Do you do a 2 appointment close? As in, I have 1 appointment to gather the information, I go home, and then we have a second appointment where I give you the products, we fill out the applications? Or how do you do it all in one sitting? I get the information I need ahead of time, so we meet down, sit down once, I'm expecting you to fill out an application.
I say 95% of my closings are, the process is we have a phone conversation where I get a little bit of information. I tell them, hey, bring your drug list to our appointment, blah, 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 bring these things. We have one kind of informational appointment. And then I say, go home and think about this, apply for your A and B, or do this, this, and this. And then there's not sometimes even a second appointment. It's just a phone conversation and doing things electronically.
I like that. See, that's, I can get
They're
behind
not like
that.
forced to make a decision right then and there. Now, sometimes, you know, somebody calls me on the 28th and is like, I need coverage tomorrow. Well, yeah, we're signing papers right then.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, what I've always told and worked with agents in the past would be, and the reason why I like your idea is because you're doing it still convenient. I know a lot of agents like, well, I want them in my office 2 times. And it's, well, that's not convenient. Nobody wants to, you know, insurance is not a fun conversation to have. And sometimes it can be more of a burden to get there. So I like the idea of like, I try to do a lot of my fact finding on the phone. Then we have the appointment where I educate them, show them their options, and then we do it again on the phone or electronically after the fact. So I can get behind that. It's just, again, my number one priority is just make sure that I maintain a level of convenience to my client. So sometimes doing it all in one go is fine, but then you, again, don't want to struggle with having a 2-hour appointment, which sometimes that can cause.
Do you feel like industry-wide it's a 1 appointment or a 2 appointment?
I'll say I think agents who are new to Medicare and still trying to be like, I want to do what's best for my client, but I don't really know what I'm doing yet, will do the 2 appointment close. They'll like, I'll get the information I need from my client. I'll do all the fact finding. I'll go home and research it myself and figure out what's best in their situation. And then I'll present them their options at the next appointment. And I think that's okay, but I really like to see, like, I think that's okay for people who are new. Because I would rather you be sure when you're offering coverage than have to go back and say, I made a mistake. But I think eventually you should try to consolidate a lot of that appointment into one, or like what you do, you know, getting as much information you can in the beginning and doing it electronically when it comes to actually the paperwork and signing and stuff. So we do have some questions here. Thank you guys again. I love it whenever we get a ton of interaction. Pam is mentioning that they always reach out 8 months prior to turning 65. She says she always covers HSAs prior to turning 65. That's such a good point as well. A lot of, especially like the affluent clients, have those HSAs, and they want to know, like, a big question is, how does Medicare affect my HSA, which we know it does a lot. It really affects your HSA. Darren was saying, I had a client in yesterday and they were wanting to get his Medicare Part B started. That appointment was an hour long, an hour and a half long, but 54 minutes was on full with Social Security. That's not surprising whatsoever. Good for you, Darren, for helping him out with that.
I love that, Pam. 8 months prior to 65. See, that's the other thing. I feel like this question depends upon the beneficiary, if they're already enrolled in Medicare, or like if it's an AEP appointment. That's a one of, I think all of those are one.
Like
if it's a new client that's coming to me during AEP, we pretty much only meet that one time. But I meet with a lot of the pre-65-year-olds, and so a lot of times that first meeting is like, hey, you still have steps to do before we can enroll. So it is a 2 meeting.
That makes sense. Again, you have to do it what's best for your client and how that works for them. Greg was talking about, should I say my employer plan? He asked if I say my employer plan, should I sign up for A and B? And of course, Gregory, knowing the 20 employee rule, are they considered credible coverage as Medicare primary? Bernadette says it all depends. I have done the one and done, the 2 appointments, and sometimes the 3 because the person did not bring the information
there's
requested.
always that.
I believe that because like they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And I will be the first to admit, like, even whenever, like, I've worked in insurance for the past 10 years, and, like, I'll go to sign up for my insurance, and I'm like, I have no idea what I have, where are my cards, like, what, like, shoot, is, like, did I enter in this information correctly? So, like, I get it. Pam says, general Medicare education about a month out, can be done via Zoom or the phone. Pam, I know you are, like, the Zoom appointment queen. Like, huge, 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 huge stuff. And Pam also does the 2 appointment process.
Love it.
So this is what we see. Again, this is where a lot of agents will shoot themselves in the foot, is that they over-educate on how Medicare works. This is, again, I know you mentioned a lot of these. This is really the bulk of what your appointment needs to cover. So when they're asking, like, how does my plan work? How do you answer that? Like, are you going through, like, the benefit? I know with, like, a Medicare Advantage plan, you're going through the benefits line by line, but how do you work on that answer?
I always like to give it with an example, a specific example that would hit home with them. Typically, I feel like this 65 to 75-year-olds all have, like, a knee replacement or a shoulder replacement. And that is probably very biased of me to say that, but that's something that hits home with them. I'm like, okay, so let's say you need a knee replacement. This is how it works on your MedSup, and this is how it would work if you had an Advantage plan. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you don't really have to explain, like, how the clock is made on a knee replacement. That's a very common procedure. That's something that hits home. Everybody knows somebody who had that if you're not wanting to get it yourself.
Right.
So I like that. I like telling stories to get your point across.
Yes, that's,
or they'll remember that.
Or I'll use a specific example, especially on when I'm talking about a MedSup. I'm like, this is an unfortunate example, but I had a client who was, he was helicoptered over to a hospital in St. Louis for like 3 months. He was in and out of surgeries over there. He paid his $233 deductible, never saw another bill. Like, that is how a MedSup G is supposed to work. And they're like, oh, wow, that registers with them.
Yeah, like that right there just sold me on a plan G. Like, I'll take 12. I need 12 of those. Yes, Brian says, I do that too. Always reference a knee replacement. So you have something in common with Brian, which is a scary thing.
I'm just kidding. I don't even know you. I'm learning you though, Brian.
Oh, that's funny. We do a real comparison. Pam, love your input. They do a real comparison. Faye says when they pre-65, they gather the information on the phone interview, one face-to-face, then close electronically on the phone with that second appointment on the computer. Awesome. Faye and you do like a very similar appointment. And again, it's what works for you.
Right.
If it's a convenient 2 appointment close, which is what you're kind of doing, which over the phone, let's do it all electronically. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a really great option. They feel like they're taken care of. I would just say make sure, like, you have to have a strong follow-up, I would feel like. Because if you don't have a strong follow-up, then, like, they will go to somewhere else. And because they may not know, like, oh, I need to call them back or I need to make a decision on this. So I think you have to have a really strong close on a 2 appointment one, but, like, it obviously works. I mean, like, you're successful.
But you do, and it's easy for people to get, like what we talked about last week about getting organized. Like, you got to follow up on, if you didn't close during that one appointment, I hope you're keeping track of, hey, these are all the people that I've met with, and what do we do now? Are they waiting on me, or am I waiting on them? You got to be organized.
If you're joining like a Medicare Advantage or a PDP and you send an application and they haven't touched it, Medicare Center will actually tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, it'll be like, oh, they haven't completed this, or you sent out the scope of appointment, haven't gotten it back yet. So you have a lot of tools. Pam says that she uses Agency Block, which is like the mwah of CRMs. So just going through these again pretty quickly because you guys can read, but this is something that I actually didn't know that clients cared that much about, which is where does my premium go? And it makes sense. I know you mentioned specifically IRMA, but like they'll have like, okay, my Part D premium goes here, my MedSup premium goes here, Social Security takes my Part B. I also have a cancer that goes here. So like,
yeah, especially if you're dealing with more affluent clients that are subject to IRMA, or they are on the MedSup and they've got, 3 different moving pieces. A lot of times they're just like, make everything come out of my Social Security. I'm like, well, we can't really do that, but this piece and this piece are going to come out of Social Security, but if you're not drawing Social Security, well, you're going to get a bill for your IRMA, and then you're going to, this MedSup is going to go to a carrier, and it could be a completely different carrier for your Part D.
So really like having to explain, like almost like chart it out, being like, this is going here. This is how much you can
send a
expect.
follow-up email after we, after everything's signed. I send a summary email and I say, this $138 premium is going to this carrier and it's coming out of this account.
That's great advice. Like that follow-up is saying like, this is where your money is going.
I learned after getting so many of those questions, I was like, I'm going to get ahead of this and just send it out from the get-go so they don't ask.
That's really great advice. Everybody should write that down. That's really great advice. The big things that I always talk about, like clients really care about 3 things. Can I see my doctor? Can I take my prescription? How much is it going to cover me? And so making sure that, again, you in your fact finding, you're really focusing on those 3 things: their doctor, their medication. And honestly, my favorite one we have on here is what is Medicare, does Medicare not cover? Because that's where all your cross-selling opportunity is. Like it doesn't cover, you know,
dental, vision, and hearing if you're doing
exactly. It doesn't cover if you your travel, if you have cancer. It doesn't cover 60% of the cost of cancer.
Right.
You know, so again, that's what is not covered. I think is probably one of the most important things to cover in an appointment.
I agree, because that person, that's the fastest way to get somebody upset with you. If you're like, well, you didn't tell me I can't get my teeth cleaned. Like a lot of people don't know that. And they just think, well,
they're not mad at Medicare.
They're mad at you for not telling them.
So some more comments on here. Faye said, sell yourself. You're a resource that they need. Tell them that you don't work for a plan or you don't work for CMS. You're independent and their advocate. Absolutely, Faye. Like I always say, I don't work. I always like, my husband builds houses for a living. So all of my references are like house related. But it's like, I don't work with a plumber because of the tools he uses or the piping he uses. I use a plumber because of his expertise. So it's kind of the same thing as an insurance agent.
Absolutely.
And then Pam says she also does a recap email just to be proactive in what they purchase, what it cost. Great point. Thank you, Pam. And again, this is the point that I wanted to talk about specifically for like a Medicare 101. It's kind of what's a good guide, how much is too much information versus how much is not enough. I don't want anybody to be blindsided about a Part B deductible or the Part D coverage gap. So I need to make sure I educate them on that. But how far is too far? This is one of, I think, my favorite. Is this page 5 of the Medicare New Handbook. When it comes to original Medicare versus a Medicare Advantage plan, but when that's up, this page covers 95% of what you need. I think in addition to this, I would do the MedSup chart. I don't even know that I would include the whole chart. I would have an F, G, and N chart if they're, over the age of 65. I would have an F, G, and N chart for MedSups, but really 95% of your Medicare 101 is this page. And Pam agrees. She says she absolutely loves this page.
Do you hear from most agents that this is what they use?
I don't hear it that much.
Really?
And it's exactly. And I think a lot of times it's I'll tell you this, experienced agents. I actually met with our #1 individual agent across the entire United States. I met with him yesterday. He told me his appointments are 30 minutes to an hour. He uses this page and one other page that he created, that his agency creates, again, just kind of a brochure about his agency. That's his entire Medicare appointment. So I will say the agents who are efficient are using this. Unfortunately, I don't see enough agents use this. They try to recreate the wheel and they spend too much time making their own stuff or too much time explaining the inner workings of Medicare because they feel like they want to show how knowledgeable they are.
I use something similar. I kind of made my own 2 pathways. It looks very similar to this. I just made, for efficiency and like cleanliness, I made little line items next to each part where I can put the cost for an easy cost comparison. And it has like my information on it, and I can't put my information on this Medicare document, so that's why but it's very similar to this.
That's a really important point. It's because like we've been talking about all day, you really want to advertise yourself. You don't want to advertise the carriers, you want to advertise yourself. And so you can't throw your logo on this. It's a government document. It has the CMS logo on there. You can't edit it. So I like the way that you're taking the information, but you're making it to where it's selling your services versus like just explaining Medicare. Perfect. And Chris said, I should invent the new wheel. I would be rich. That would be wonderful, Chris. Good luck with that. And Pam says, handwrite in the book. It makes it real to me. Exactly. So I'm all for, again, using the documents that you have. But again, Pam mentioned they're familiar with this. Everybody gets a new Medicare new handbook every September. So they're familiar with this. Just be careful because a turning 65er may not have
that yet. Yeah.
They typically send these out in September for the next year. So if you have a person that turns 65 in May, they're not getting this booklet. So it's really nice to make sure you have an electronic copy to show them. I'm keeping it like on your iPad or your computer, but it is an absolutely great resource.
The other great thing about using that is if somebody has a question about a specific, like, how is a colonoscopy covered or whatever it is, like, well, you can flip to that specific part and say, boom, here, it's covered under your Part B.
We actually do on SMS University. We have a white paper that goes through and says, here are all the most important pages of the Medicare New Handbook. So if somebody asks about how is this procedure covered, go to this page. If somebody asks, how does it work with my group insurance, go to this page. So if you have questions on that, again, it's under library on the SMS University. Okay. Check it out. We have that for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what Faye, she's saying, I use a presentation from the plan. It's about 8 minutes long presentation, MedSups. She gets it every year.
I want a big mug.
Chris, you actually probably know Chris. Chris is the CEO and one of the founders of Lead Concepts.
Oh.
Yeah. So
the name looks familiar.
I actually have a meeting with Chris here in about 30 minutes. How fun is that? So that's, guys, again, what we have today for your Medicare Cafe. Hopefully this has been helpful and educating for you guys. Maybe, picked up a couple ideas to help you with that. The biggest takeaways that I should say is it's okay to have a 2-hour long appointment, but those 2 hours better be spent because it is your clients are engaging with you, not because you're lecturing them on Medicare. Because again, no, I don't want to know how the car works. I just want to get to my destination.
Definitely don't want to overeducate.
Yeah. And I think that's like one of the top reasons why like people get objections is you overcomplicated it.
Yeah. You overcomplicate.
So, and Faye said best one yet. Thank you, Faye. We certainly appreciate that. More content like this coming at you guys. We do appreciate, again, thank you everybody for figuring this out today and bearing with us on the changes that we have with the Medicare Cafe link. Just again, to remind everybody, Medicare Cafe, we'll keep you guys in the loop. We'll keep you guys up to date, but we will be taking Medicare Cafe off of the GoToWebinar platform and putting it on doing YouTube lives. You guys will still be getting reminded. We are doing that because we want to make sure that it's mobile friendly. We want to make sure that it's user friendly. Obviously, we see all the issues that can come with the GoToWebinar platform. So again, if you guys have questions on that, we will keep you updated. But in the meantime, to make sure you do get notified when we post on our YouTube page, which is where all of this is going to be, go to YouTube and type in Medicare Cafe, like and follow, turn on notifications for the page. That way you will know when we go live. Thank you, Brian. See, you already became Brian's favorite. That took no time at all. Awesome. Thank you, Darren. Good to see you, Darren, or see you. Good to see you guys. Thank you, Bernadette. But any other questions, guys, before we log off? Any other questions, comments, concerns, threats, or promises? Please let us know. We want to make sure you guys are getting the most. And again, we really appreciate your commentary today.
Yeah, very involved.
Any last words of wisdom from you before you go and take over the world?
Hang on to your Jeeps if you guys have them.
Oh,
enjoy them.
Enjoy.
Ride it with the top down.
Live through our mistakes. I don't regret much in life. I do regret getting rid of my Jeep. I should have kept on to it.
If you get one before I do, you got to come take
me for a ride. I will come pick you up. We'll ride topless. Take that as you will. Awesome, guys. We appreciate you all. We will see you next Tuesday. So until next time, have fun, make money, and give impeccable service. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.